I met Barbara because I was posting in the Women's Digital Nomad group trying to find women who found love in their late 30s or early 40s. And Barbara is such an inspiring example. She's a mom now, so she really shows it's possible. And I'm really excited to surround myself with role models like Barbara. So, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here and being willing to share your story.
Welcome and thank you for having me.
Yay. So, Barbara, maybe we could just start off. Let's just start off with your love story because I know
Okay.
everybody's going to want to hear it. Tell us, what was going on in your life before you met your husband and kind of what you were feeling, what you were thinking, and then how the meet cute happened.
Well, it's actually interesting that you ask because um this when I met my husband, I was not going through the best period of my life. I had just immigrated to Spain, I think maybe 2 years before. And so it was the middle of a pandemic. This was 2020, and well, we were more or less under lockdown. I was having issues with my license. Um, I was working at a hospital, and things were pretty bad because we were just swamped with, COVID cases. But
Mm.
this was already like December 2020. So we had been going through this for like already 9 months, and we were starting to all get like really, really tired. So I was pretty burnt out by the
Yeah.
time I met my husband. And honestly, I wish I could say something else, but we met on an app in the middle of the pandemic, mostly because we were both bored and lonely. So, so yeah, that's kind of how it happened. I was really not my best self when we met. I will say though, like I had been doing a lot of work in therapy because I had this unfortunate tendency to go after men who sounded really good on paper, like who were very ambitious, who were very smart. And none of those are bad things. But I did like good on paper does not always translate into a good person. So I ended up having like a very long list of well-read and very well accomplished, uh, not very nice men on my dating history. So I kind of decided to do something different this time, and I met a man who was completely different from me in every way possible, different culture, different country of origin, different line of work. Everything was different. And his approach to dating was also very, very different. So we met just 5 years ago at the end of December. And I remember like our second date was on Christmas Eve because neither of us celebrate Christmas, and we were both like alone in town for the city
Wow.
for the holidays. We went out for pizza, and the rest is history. Mhm.
Amazing. Okay, there's so many things I want to unpack there, which I love. First of all, I just have to put a pin in you not feeling your best self because I think so many women, not men so much,
Yeah,
unfortunately, but so many women feel like they have to become the absolute perfect version of themselves,
no,
perfect fitness level, perfect mental health, healed every single childhood trauma, and then they can have the privilege of finding a partner. And you really met your partner when you were at a low point. And I think that's just really powerful to show people that anyone has access to love. You don't have to be perfect in order to find love.
no, you don't.
Mm. And also,
No, I had done a lot of work prior, and I was still, but I was not my best self. And to be fair, and I think this is important, neither was he. Like he had just turned in his final draft of his PhD dissertation like the week before. And like I literally think like if we had met a month before we had, like nothing would have happened. Like this we were neither of us were in the right headspace. And it just so happened that when we did, it worked.
that's amazing. So luck is a big part of all of this
Yeah,
as well.
luck.
And yeah, and I think also with therapy, it can kind of give you a certain I think it sounds also like you were kind of in a place of vulnerability and humility. You
Yeah.
were And that is a really good place for attracting love as well. People love each other for their mistakes, not for for being human, really.
Yes, exactly. And also, I think not just that, it was also, like, I had finally admitted to myself that whatever I was doing before was not working.
So good.
And I had also admitted to myself that I did actually want a partner because before, like, it's kind of I feel like it's very easy to fall, like, in games when you're meeting people and dating, especially online, where we kind of, pretend to be, casual, fancy free, nonchalant. I don't want to pressure him. And it was actually very interesting because, like, I had finally admitted to myself that I did want something serious and I did want a partner. And, like, I wasn't just looking to see what happened or to, maybe fill the time. Like, I actually wanted the whole package. And so did he, but actually he was because of the kind of person he was very straightforward about it from the very beginning, and, like, I absolutely did not expect that.
Wow. I love that clarity. Do you feel like okay, so when you were doing this therapy, what do you feel like were some of the things that you were looking for in terms of how you defined a good qualities in a partner? Before it was clear it was kind of having that great degree, smart, successful, and then what were some characteristics that were top of mind before you met your husband in terms of what you were looking
I would definitely say, like, I also for me, chemistry was probably also, like, really important, banter. Like, I was a sort of person who would pay attention to, what kind of books they read or, like, if they subscribed to, like, certain like, what newspapers they read. Academics were important to me.
Yeah.
That sort of thing was important. Like, I'm not gonna say that the physical aspect, what people looked like. I was never the sort of person to have, like, a height requirement,
Mhm.
but I always kind of felt like, yes, you do have to have, like, a certain level of baseline chemistry and be attracted to the person. Butterflies, like, that kind of, like, intoxicating feeling, I think. And I think a lot of women are socialized to look for that
Mhm.
and to want that.
Exactly.
And I think I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but it can be a very slippery slope.
So in terms of what changed, then in terms of the positive characteristics, or what are the characteristics that you really value in your husband?
Well, see, the thing is, I honestly, and this is something, now that I've been with him for a while, like, I hadn't paid enough attention to what kind of person they really were, like morals, like how he treats the waiter. Um, he is someone who follows through. And if he's not going to be able to follow through, then he doesn't make any promises.
I love that.
Like, he is very, very, like, to a fault, honest, which sometimes I that's also something I think a lot of us wanna hear certain things, but and I think a lot of us chase the highs without really paying attention to the lows that can come after them. And with my husband, it was always very steady. Like, there were no I mean, the highs maybe weren't as high, but there were no lows.
Yes.
Or very, very, like, they weren't as pronounced. I'm not gonna say that there weren't no lows. There were, obviously, in every relationship. There are, but they're not, like, they don't make you spin out of control, and, there was no, "Oh my god, why hasn't he texted me?" Um, None of that.
Oh, that's so good. That kind of thing is so nerve-wracking.
It
So
is.
yeah, amazing. And now you have a child. You just turned
Yeah, well, not yet. I'm due February 19th, so I'm 33 weeks pregnant, and I'm due in February. Yeah.
Oh, I'm a big fan of February and March birthdays. My birthday is in March, and I just always get so
Amazing.
excited for March. It's not a very holiday dense month. That's
Yeah.
February, so it's great to have a a child in
Yeah.
February. Oh, so what dating app did you use?
I was on Bumble.
Okay, super.
And actually, I mean, the story is, again, I mean, I work long, weird hours, so, um, we had matched, but again, like, I was mostly doing it because I was bored and lonely. And so we matched, but I had done nothing about it, and, like, I had been like, he had reached out to me via text. No, he hasn't because women have to text first, but, like, I hadn't contacted him at all. Like, I basically forgot he existed. And then he prolonged the match for 24 hours, and, like, I remember seeing it the next day, and I was like, "Oh, that's nice."
Has that feature anymore, but it was a really good
It's
one.
and so I saw that he wanted to, like, prolong the match, and so I was like and I had actually I liked his profile. I was working and, my brain just kind of disconnected, and I didn't see it until the next day. And so then I reached out to him, and so we started talking, and well, we talked for, like, I'm gonna say 15, 20 minutes. I saw that, I could have a conversation with this man for more than 20 minutes. And so I'm not great at texting and I don't like doing the pen pal thing. Um, I don't think we really planned it that way, but like again, we were both like it was Christmas and we were both kind of bored and lonely, had nothing to do. And it was lockdown. There was nothing. I can't remember if it was the next day or the day after. And so we just kind of walked around the city and saw the Christmas lights. That was our first date.
Oh, how sweet. That's such a great idea. It's so funny because I spoke to a dating coach 2 days ago. There was this woman named
Mhm.
Mina Yang. She does hypnotherapy and relationship coaching, and she suggested, why don't you just stop texting and FaceTiming people? I also
Yes.
just despise texting, and I feel like so I was on Bumble and I just FaceTimed this guy randomly. I said, "What can I have to lose?" Right? And he picked up. He was so happy that I FaceTimed him. He was just amazing. Like, if he had been texting me, I would have thought that he had a fake profile because he's a pediatric neurosurgeon and he
Mhm.
specializes in AI. I would have just said, "Very funny, you're trying to get me to buy gold," or something like that. But it was, because we were talking on the phone, I said, "Oh my gosh, that's cool," and then I went out on a really nice date. So I think the texting is ugh, I hope we can change the culture around that.
I do. Like, I mean, for me, it's mostly I have ADHD, so um if it's kind of for me, it's out of sight, out of mind. Like if I can't put a face to him, like he doesn't really exist as a person.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So that's so cool. So you went around, you saw the Christmas lights. He was very clear that he wanted a partnership, not just
yes, from the very beginning, I was not expecting that at all because again, I was used to guys who like were more like who don't necessarily aren't really very clear. And so actually when he asked me first what I was looking for, and I kind of gave him like the standard answer that I had for guys who asked that question. Because the thing is, in my previous experiences, guys who ask that question don't actually want to know what you want.
they just think they're supposed to ask it or something.
Yeah, they're kind of supposed to ask, and it's kind of like this guessing game where like we both sound non-committal but open, but you kind of have to gauge what the right tone is. So I kind of said something that made no sense and he called me out on it. He was like, "What?" And I'm like,
I'm in
yeah,
my late 30s, but I really have no idea what I'm looking for. Haven't thought about
exactly.
it much.
Yeah. And it was like, "Well, I'm open. I mean, if it works, well, that's great. But if it doesn't, like, I'm okay being friends." And then he just kind of looks at me and he was like, "No, I want a relationship." I'm
Spicy.
like, "Okay."
Wonderful.
It was like, "Well, I'm not telling you that I want a relationship with you today, but I am looking for a partnership. I want something serious."
It's awesome. It's so funny how people are, when it comes to dating, people can be so mature and authentic and clear in other areas of the life. But then when it comes to dating, we feel like we have to become these teenagers or something, kind of playing some type of.
Yes, this is something I've discussed with friends several times, and I think that the way we date when we're 25 and the date way we date when we're in our late 30s should not be the same, but we're trying to do the same thing we did when we were in our early 20s. But the game has changed and our priorities has changed, and, like, I'm not really understanding why we're still doing the same thing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I would even say when we're 13, there's no reason. I mean, 25-year-old is, you're still kind of playing around with your identity, but you've gone to college, you're a fully formed adult.
Exactly.
And that you can't.
Like, why would you not want to, like, because, like, there's this thing that you're supposed to explore, but also I think by the time you hit 25, well, maybe not 25, like, some of us, I was more of a bit of a late bloomer, but I would say 27, 28, mid-20s, mid to late 20s, like, I mean, you sort of know who you are, and maybe there's this pressure to, like, play the field and have adventures, and, I mean, that can just look very different for many people. And yeah, I think there's also like this pressure to like not commit too early, which can be a mistake.
I think so too. It's funny. I mean, I feel like everyone needs to do what's best for them, and I don't have any judgments in terms of, some people are ethically non-monogamous. That is not for me. That's just not how I'm really wired, at least right now. And, I absolutely support that. But I feel like the people who you can be honest with are the people that you're going to have good relationships with. If
Yeah.
you say to a man, I want marriage and I want children, and he says, "Whoa, you're intense." That's not the best guy for me. I mean, the
No,
best guys I've dated, I've literally just said what I want. I've been the first one to kiss them, just like, "When are we getting together?" And they love that. So,
yeah.
it's a
And
good
again, like sometimes
characterization, be
I mean,
yourself.
one in my case, I would say like I was probably like the one who was most gun shy going into it. And but like he was very sure, and that made me feel a lot more secure.
That's so nice. Yeah, security security attachment style. So what did he how come he was struggling before? Has he told, like, what about his perspective in terms of.
Well, the thing is, we come from very, very, very different worlds, and so he's comes from a very different culture. He was by himself, like like we both live in Madrid, but um, I come from much more of a place of privilege, like in many, 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 many ways. Passport privilege, white privilege, um, economic privilege, like we're both very close to our families, but I have a family that I can, ask for support, like when things go south, and he has to support his family.
Mm, yeah, wow.
So, like, he was finishing his PhD, he was also working a job. He wasn't struggling, I would say, because I think at other points in his life, he probably struggled more. But like, he was just did not have like the bandwidth to really date. Like, he had tried dating, but also, like, the cultural aspect of it, for him, he found it difficult because, I mean, he is a Moroccan Muslim man, and he was trying to date in Spain, and so at the beginning, it was like most of the women he was meeting in Spain was like, "Oh, I mean, of course, you have, like, 4 wives in Morocco," and he didn't. And then when he would go home and try to date women there, it was like, "Well, I mean, of course, like, you're having the time of your life, and you're dating a ton of women in Spain, so no." And he wasn't, and so it was kind of like he was kind of caught between, and, like, nobody would take him seriously.
Yes, I mean, I feel like dating is an area where all of our prejudices come to the fore
Yeah.
in such interesting ways. All right, so what do you like about being married? How is it? What's good about
Um,
married life?
I mean, we lived together for, like, a year and a half before we were married. And to be honest, I think marriage was more important for him than it was for me. But, I would say that, like, one thing that has changed, and I don't think it's, like, good or bad, it's just, like, legally, in terms of, like, money decisions and in terms of legal decisions, we have to be on the same page. Like, there is no longer, like, you do you and I'll do what works for me.
Mhm.
That just that doesn't work. So, having to take a certain number of, like, decisions together has been really interesting.
Hmm. So what about, I mean, what about other things? I mean, being single, living alone versus living.
Yes, I mean, that's not so much of a marriage thing, but that's yes. I mean,
Well,
I
let's
will
talk
say
about maybe more partnership then. What's good
partner.
about having a partner?
Um, I will say, like, I worked a lot on my single identity, and I was very proud of that person.
Mm.
So, because I was single for 8 years before I met my husband, so it was I did have to kind of grieve my single identity and being able to do whatever I wanted with my time and my vacation and my money. And that part was hard to let go of. But like anything, like I don't think it's necessarily better or worse. It's different. And I really enjoyed my single life, but I'm also really enjoying marriage. So it's just different.
What about it do you enjoy?
I enjoy the fact of like he knows me so well. Once if I've had a bad day, like I don't even need to say anything. Like he will just take a look at me and he was like, okay, well, sit down. I'll make you dinner. I'll make you some tea. And what happened?
Mm.
Because, I would be kind of the type of person to maybe not want to talk about it at first because I feel sometimes that I kind of have to process things myself at the beginning. But like when you live with someone who knows you so well, like, and I do the same with him. Like you can see that your partner is having a hard time. It's like, okay, well, I respect like if you need to take some time and think about it and process it for yourself, but I'm here. And sooner than later, it has a lot to do with being seen, which I think is really important. Um, and being seen like at your least glamorous and still like they're still with you, even when you look like absolute garbage, when you feel like garbage, when you're sick.
Yes, for sure. And so we didn't really touch into your background so
Mhm.
much, but you are a family physician thinking
Yeah.
about potentially opening your own practice. You said related to behavioral change. What about just kind of the science of living with someone? Do you think that that is, I mean, just in terms of not being alone, but actually having another physical presence, is that,
Yes. I mean,
maybe you could tell us a little bit about that?
I I can. I mean, honestly, I think for me, the reason why I decided that I wanted a partner, like I was really going to invest in trying to be with someone was during the pandemic because I was alone. Like my family was on the other side of the world. And, part of me was relieved because especially in the really early days when we didn't know anything about like the virus or how it would show up, I didn't want to put my parents at risk. So part of me was grateful that I was far away and that, I was going to work every day and I didn't have to worry about them. But, that kind of changes 9, 10 months in. And then I realized, if something happens to me, who's going to tell my parents?
Ugh, yes.
Because, like, I can't see my friends. Like, I had, like, a great group of friends that I couldn't see because, I mean, like, we were, like, socially distanced and all of that. So I was by myself a lot, which is not really a problem. Like, I'm more of an introvert and I'm fine being by myself, but it's one thing is being mostly by yourself, and another thing is being forced to be by yourself. And I mean, realizing that, yes, I am actually like putting myself at risk every day. And not only do I have nobody to share this burden with, but like literally, if something happens to me, you know, w- how how do I tell my parents back home? Like if something happens to me and I have to like be hospitalized or something. Like I don't want them to get the call from like a colleague or someone that they don't know.
For sure. Wow. So now you have a group of friends. I bet some of them are single, some of them are married. What do you feel like are, for the friends you have who are single, what do you think are kind of the biggest obstacles that they have in terms of finding relationships?
Oh, I will say that I think um I hate to like talk about age because I think it's I mean, it's a very tricky subject. I know for myself that I didn't really know myself maybe well enough, or I wasn't really honest with myself until I reached the age of 35.
Mhm.
So before I was kind of going on a lot of tangents and I wasn't really being honest with myself. So I think some of us are just late bloomers and we come to that realization later in life. But the problem with, you know, actually getting to know what you want and who you are, which is great later in life. And I think I mean, for me, it's been one of my biggest gifts. The problem with that comes within you, you have more responsibilities and you have less time. So, and you also become more set in your ways in a lot of ways. So that part gets tricky. And when I think that when we're younger, you have more opportunities to meet people just because you have just more opportunities to go out. And it's like when you're in at university or even like in your early working days, you don't have as much responsibility. So you can afford to go out like on a Wednesday or, you know, it's just easier to meet people in general face to face and you don't have to rely so much on apps. And, you know, and I will say this as someone who met their partner on an app, it obviously can work, but it is stilted and it does force interactions a certain way. And it just makes things, I think, harder because I think there's also like this overabundance of choice. And so it makes people more hesitant to commit. And I think that the older we get kind of up more in our own way.
Yeah.
So if I add that like to current dating culture, because this is something that a lot of my friends who are single complain about, people have just, I think, post pandemic, we've forgotten how to relate to each other. And there's just kind of like this epidemic of ghosting and of kind of treating people like they're disposable and not really. I mean, there's a lot of like awkward situationships where things are not very clearly defined because we keep expecting like somebody better to come along and to like to clear all of our doubts. Nobody is.
Absolutely, and I think that's so hard on the dating apps because there's so many options.
Yes.
I mean, I feel even for myself, I developed this kind of FOMO, like, I have to see every single person available, and then I can make my decision, and then if I start dating someone, I'll say, "Oh, well, there's someone who's a bit taller and more successful on the dating app, so maybe I can find better," but then is that person even messaging with me? I don't know who they are, and that can be a real challenge, and it's very different than how I find my friends, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I will say, like, one thing that I did when I met my husband was I wasn't expecting to go, like, on a date, like, to potentially find a partner. Like, literally, it was a cold day in December, like, we were both bored and had nothing better to do, so I figured, "Look, I'm gonna go have a coffee with this guy and walk around for a bit." Like, if it I mean, it was close to my neighborhood anyways, so, like, if it just really, really if it's terrible, like, I've invested 1 coffee and I can make up some excuse and I'll just bounce.
Yeah. I love that you and your husband have found this way of really being together in terms of the finances and how you spend money in the household. And we talked a little bit at the beginning of the dating, and I think that not a lot of people talk about the middle of dating. And I'm just wondering kind of how you managed to find your way around finances. I mean, like I had this really popular clip about splitting the bill. I think that for a lot of women, a man who doesn't, treat you to the first coffee, it's kind of a red flag. But then after a certain point, you do need to start sharing those finances. I mean, so I'm wondering,
Yep.
how did that evolve in your relationship? Was it something you talked about, or did it just kind of happen organically?
I would say probably a bit of both. So, he did treat me to, like, the first coffee, but, like, also it wasn't a huge investment, like, whenever I think the second date, we went out to dinner and then we split the bill.
Okay.
But also, like, in Spain, that's just kind of how things are, and it's kind of what most people expect. So, we didn't really have a conversation about it at that point, it was kind of we played it by ear, and, like, sometimes we would split the bill, sometimes he would treat me, and occasionally I would treat him. And we didn't really talk much about it, like, until a couple months in, I would say, like, when we started, like, traveling together
Mm.
and, like, planning more stuff together, well, then, yes, you need to talk about, like, how you wanna pay for certain things and, what's important for you. And also take into consideration, like, how much each person makes because, like, I'm a big proponent of equity more than equality. Like, 50-50, what does 50-50 look like in a household? So, like, for me right now, I would say, I mean, I'm making slightly more money than he is. Not a whole lot, but a little. So, he actually does more around the house than I do, and I might be paying for for a bit more, but I think it balances out. So, that's, I mean, those are definitely conversations that need to be had. When do they need to be had? Well, it's going to really depend on every couple. Like, I think that if you lead with that, it might be a bit off-putting for certain people, but not for others. Like, other people just might, really, really appreciate, like, being so clear and upfront about it. So, I think it really depends on the person. For me, it was kinda like the perfect blend of, we didn't go right. I would say, like, we started talking about these things maybe about 3 or 4 months in.
Okay, excellent. So the second day you basically like you or he just said, "Oh, we'll just split it," when the waiter came over and it wasn't
Mhm.
a big deal. Yeah, it's such a tricky one. I feel like it's so much related to what your parents gave you or didn't give you and
Yes, I think so too. Like, but that's also a thing. Like, my parents are very much kind of like split the bill type of people. So the way, because that's kind of how, well, they don't split the bill, but it's kind of
nice.
more they my mom will pay for certain things, my dad will pay for other things,
Yeah.
and that's just kind of how I grew up. And, like, I don't have necessarily a problem with the splitting the bill situation. I mean, I know other women who, like, were raised in more traditional households find that more off-putting, but, like, also at the same time, I mean, I didn't know this, like, by the second date, but I was at the time making considerably more money than he was. So,
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it's again, I think it's about the orientation of the relationship. If you're looking for an equal partner, it makes sense to be splitting the bill, be having conversations about money. Whereas if you're kind of looking for some sugar daddy or like looking for kind of more the chivalrous romance of dating,
yes,
you might feel like, well, if he
which is
really
fine,
liked me, he would pay for me, and things like that.
which is fine. Like, there are some women who do want to be taken care of, like, in a different way, like, who expect, you know if they're having children, for example, to be staying at home.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, right now where I live in Madrid, like, you can't really have a family on one income. I know very, very, very few people who actually manage to do that. So it's kind of like the default setting at this point. Like, even if you don't want to, it just,
Yeah.
the nature of things is such that you need two incomes.
For sure. So Barbara, we let's talk a little bit more about what you're working on now and the project that you're thinking of starting in the future. First
Well,
baby
right now,
project.
I'm I mean, right now I'm on maternity leave, but I work for the Spanish public health system, and they have, like, a really, really nice system that, we're overworked and overstressed, just like every other health professional everywhere. But it's it is a system that, when it works properly, kind of does favor, like, long-term doctor-patient relationships, and, ideally the same doctor will see the patient throughout, and their entire family throughout, like, the course of 10, 20 years.
Mm,
So, that's that's kind of my goal, to do that, but do that in a way that doesn't depend on necessarily working in a public office.
mm,
So I would be open to working with international patients and, people from all over. And I would be especially looking into doing more preventative medicine and lifestyle change. Because what I've noticed a lot is that, for most chronic conditions, you do need a certain level of lifestyle intervention, but most people don't know how to go about it. And so you can definitely, outsource it to different professionals. Like you can talk to nutritionists, um, you can talk to, physiotherapists, you can talk to personal trainers. But there's very few people who will be able to bridge the gaps because, ideally every person will be talking to you about what they know, but there isn't someone who can kind of oversee like a global plan of how you get from A to B. And there are a lot of people who will say that they can, but very few actually have the credentials to do it.
Mm.
So, because you have like a ton of like hormone coaches and, wellness and holistic practitioners, and a lot of those people don't have the knowledge. They've studied like an online course for 6 months, and that does not prepare you to care for patients.
Absolutely. I mean, the divide that still exists between medical doctors and what we know about holistic nutrition never fails to completely shock me. Like I was hearing about, brain surgeons and they like deal with their stress by they provide them with like a free bar and they're all addicted to smoking. And I know a woman who worked in a hospital in Boston and everybody was making fun of her cuz she wore a mask to work when COVID started. Like
Yeah.
these are people who went to medical school and or someone who gets some goes to the hospital for abdominal pain and then when they're done with their surgery it's like, "Oh, okay, eat whatever you want." Just what? I mean, that's even a basic level of science. You don't do that. I mean, I just I don't understand.
I mean, it's on both sides because then you have, yes, doctors who just will pay no attention to the diet, exercise, sleep part of health. And then you have uh wellness practitioners who have no medical training giving medical advice.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and selling supplements that are not regulated and who also can cause issues down the line. So, I mean, it's kind of like the wild, wild west out there. So, I mean, that's kind of where I want to come in and try to do something slightly different. I mean, this is going to be a while in the making because in order to do that, I am planning on getting a master's in nutrition and getting start doing it like a different program maybe in like different kinds of movement therapy. But so it's gonna take me a while to actually get there. But, I'm figuring, well, I might not be able to start, exactly where I want to, but I can start somewhere, like start small.
I think that's so great and so needed. I mean, it's just I don't understand why that gap is still so wide, why it's so hard for people to make that jump in their brain, but I guess that's
Yeah,
just
it's just how it is.
so many life coaches too, it's a bit of a tangent, are just they think that, "Oh, this worked for me, so I'm just gonna tell everybody to do the same thing." They don't have any concept of people's bodies are different, their genetics are different. It's just
And people have different things going on at the same time. So like, I'm thinking, for example, like, because this is also a thing within my age group, like people struggling with fertility. Um, well, yes, I mean, but it's not one thing is, it's not the same like if you're a cancer survivor and you're struggling with fertility. Like what kind of diet should you take? What kind of supplements should, be prescribed? It's not the same. Like, or somebody who has, you know, actual health issues, insulin resistance, hypertension, or, somebody else who is, mostly healthy, but just on the wrong side of 40, so to speak.
Mhm.
So, what all of these three women are going to need are going to be very, very, very different in terms of recommendations, in terms of diet, in terms of, everything. And just, what worked for you, well, it might not work for them.
Yeah, people love clean solutions, and the idea
Yeah.
that the body is complex it might be a stretch for some people. Wow. Okay, Barbara, is there anything that do you have any other advice for women in their 40s who are looking for their life partner? What would you suggest?
I would suggest, first, I mean, this is something I did at one point. Like, you don't obviously, everybody is different and nobody has to do it. But like, I made like a list of the characteristics of the guys I was dating and versus a list of the characteristics of the type of partner that I wanted. And I realized that there was a huge gap.
Oh, that's a nice one. I haven't heard that strategy.
And there was, I would say, like, more than, I know this is going to sound like super corny and like this is not rocket science, but I would say pay attention, not, I mean, obviously not just to what he says, but not even what he does, like how he treats other people that aren't you, like how he talks to the waiter, um, how he talks about other people,
Yes.
you know, how good of a person is he outside, because when he's going to be with you, he's going to want to impress you and put like his best foot forward for whatever reason. But, you know, how does he treat women that he's not attracted to?
Yeah. That's a big one. Or his previous partners.
Or his previous partners? Like in my case, he didn't have like a ton of previous partners, which, that doesn't have anything to do with it. But um, I mean, obviously his relationship with his family, I mean, that's a tricky one because, families are complicated and that can mean a lot of things. But I would say like if he has any female friends, that's also a big one. Um, if, has he worked with women before? Like does he have a female boss?
Hmm.
What's his relationship to her? Like female coworkers?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. Was it hard for you to make your list of what you wanted in an ideal partner? I've always found that exercise a bit challenging. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
Think
Kind
so.
of respectful. Treat
Or
you.
like if you find that difficult, well then maybe think about what you value in your friends. Because that's also like, for me, building like on a base of friendship was really, really important. Like for me, I remember the first time I went out with him, like I was very much like not necessarily looking for something. I think a lot of women put a lot of pressure on themselves whenever they go out, especially, after there's this pressure that you need to have it figured out after 35 and you don't.
For sure.
So like, this one has to be the one. No, he doesn't. Like you can just go out and, see if you have, I think your goal for date one needs to be if you want a date two. I mean, it's not whether you want a relationship with this man. It's not whether you want to marry this man, or it's not whether you want to have children with this man. No, it's like, do I like this person enough to want to spend more time with them?
I love that.
Or is it going to be an effort?
For sure. At what point in your dating did you start to feel chemistry?
It took a while, honestly. Like it wasn't, I remember like having a really nice time with him, but like I was confused for about a month because I wasn't really sure I wasn't really sure he was into me because just culturally we were very different. And I was more used to like a guy making a move, maybe by the third date, and he didn't. Like we were still seeing each other, we were still talking, we were going out, but like physically nothing had happened until I would say about 6 to 8 weeks.
And did you ask him why?
No, I kind of assumed, you know,
I mean,
because I had read a little bit about, his culture previously, and like I knew that it was kind of a cultural thing. And but also he's just kind of shy.
yeah. So
So
I mean, not when you were what was happening, but, like, way later. Did you ever ask him, like, what was going on with this?
yeah, but it was exactly that. Like he wasn't sure either. Like, it was again like he didn't have a ton of experience. It was kind of a big deal for him.
I think
So
so valuable because especially me, I always feel like, well, I want this guy to be totally sure about me, you know? Like, I wanna make sure he that I'm the lady for him, and then I don't necessarily bring the same. So good. Yeah, these are all such great points, Barbara, and
yeah, I mean, I think waiting is, you know, not being in a rush is important. And like again, for me, and at the beginning, like I would kind of bend myself into a twist, like, why is nothing happening? But like again, he was consistently calling me every day. And also, like, because this is the sort of person that he is, I think it was our second or our third date, like I hadn't eaten anything all day because I had been at the hospital and it was just like a busy day and I have ADHD, and at some point I just forgot to eat. And by the time I got home, like, I don't even remember if I went home first or not. Like, it was like I was gonna eat at 5 and we had dinner reservations at 7. So it was like, okay, well, I might as well just wait. And so by the time we met up, like, I had literally not eaten anything. He was scandalized. And so from then on, like, whenever we're not together, like, for the first 2 years of our relationship where, like, we were not living together, he would call me every day at 3 p.m. and ask me if I'd eaten.
Oh, so sweet. So cons
So that's the kind of thing, like, he was doing, like, even if, like, physically nothing had happened. So it was kind of like, well, I mean, he hasn't made a move, but then again, like, he's showing me that he cares. So what is more important?
Yes, and I also think that, we kind of briefly touched upon behavioral change and
Mhm.
how, you're thinking about building this practice to support behavioral change. And I hope that's something I kind of am looking for in a relationship, that someone can help support me in behavioral change. That person who's going to remind me to eat, or, hold me accountable when I'm doing a dry January, or, it's just, and maybe even bring my attention to areas of my life where I'm not fully showing up as I fully
Yeah.
could in my potential. I think that's a really valuable aspect of a relationship, to have someone around you to can challenge you to be better, to be happier, to Okay, if you are enjoying this channel, please like and subscribe. My my bestie says I need to say that in every video. So I mean, it does help, because I think that we don't hear these stories so much of women who found love later in life, and, really coming to a relationship in a mature way. So any way you can help kind of share this with other women who might be looking for a partner, um, would be great.
Also, just say, like, a word to women: your life isn't over at 40 or at 35. You know, it is possible to find love. It might not, I think this is important one. It probably won't look the way you think it will. Like, you will probably find love in a very unexpected package when you do. For me, and for, like, most of the women that I know who have, found love later in life, we were expecting a certain packaging. And I don't think there's a single one of us who have found love in that specific package. So don't pay attention to the wrapper.
Don't don't overemphasize the package.
Now, you never know.
My podcast is rated sexually explicit on Apple Podcasts, so we always need to get something
Of
in
course,
there to
I will.
justify that rating.
I, once I opened that package, I was very pleasantly surprised. So you never know.
Well, you did get it around Christmas time, so
For me, it was like I had actually kind of given up at some point, like in my early 30s.
Mm,
I had just become so jaded and so disappointed
yeah.
by
Ugh.
the dating scene and men in general, that I remember, like, sitting down with my parents when I was like 32, 33, and telling them, like, I'm probably not going to have kids. So and
Extraordinary, right? I mean, what a miracle!
yeah, yeah, and well, I had my retirement plan worked out with my best friend. I like and like I was in relationships, but like none of them, like, I had this thing where I would purposefully match with men who were only in town for like a few, like, days, like few days or a week. So like for me, it was like, if it works and like we have fun, it's great. Like, we can see each other, but they're going to be
Right.
gone anyway. So like that way, like, I don't have any expectations. Like, they don't have expectations.
We
We're
can get
not going
right
to
to
do
business.
long
Yeah.
distance thing. So, whatever. It's just fun. And I did
Mm.
that for like a couple of years. And the only
That's better
reason,
than nothing. I mean, I've gotta say, I mean, if you're gonna enjoy yourself and your body and connect with people, it's better
yeah,
than just
nothing
sitting
wrong with,
around and whining
and I,
in your house.
and I did enjoy it. But but to be honest, like, the only reason I stopped was that, pandemic happened, and like kind of like my demographic left town because there was nobody traveling, and so like I was just stuck with locals.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, like, I also really struggled, like, as a foreigner in Spain. I did try to like date Spanish men for a while, but it never really worked. And so eventually I stuck to meeting like mostly other foreigners. who were there long term, which is also a very niche group.
Very niche. So what didn't work for you about Spanish men?
Um, I mean, this is not. I have a lot of great Spanish guy friends, so like I'm not gonna say like it's not that they're bad people or bad partners. Um, I think for me, mostly the mistake I made was like again like meeting Spanish men online. Like if I had like gone more the route of, you know, meeting friends through friends, things might have been different, and like I would have probably found more men who were like more aligned with me in a way. But
This
I
is a
found like
very
a lot
good
of Spanish
point.
men.
Yeah, I think because I'm in Croatia, I feel like the kind of Croatian guys who are online are people who don't necessarily have any type of friend network.
Yeah.
You know, if they are single, like if someone who lives here, who's lived here for 30 or 40 years, suddenly is get divorced or out of a long-term relationship, they're not going to go on the apps because they know plenty of people who can introduce themselves to someone. But someone who's a digital nomad or an expat, everybody's new, right? So it makes
Uh,
sense to go on an app.
yeah. I mean, yes and no, because like I mean, within my friend group, I have like friends, but this is like immediately post pandemic who are
Mhm.
they like they're both Spanish, but they met on Tinder. So, and like they just had a baby boy in August. So, sometimes it happens, but
It
yeah,
does.
like
It's a channel.
yeah, the type of men that I Spanish men that I was meeting online were like a very like they kind of, and I don't like putting people in boxes, but this is also what online dating does to you. You end up, you know, putting people in boxes and labeling people, which I
For
don't
sure.
like, but the interactions always felt very forced. And since I have a very diverse and a bit unique background ethnically, family wise, I felt like they couldn't put me in a box, and that was a problem for them.
Mm,
And
yeah.
I dislike being put in, you know, in a like neat little package. And the fact that they
I
couldn't
don't
do
want to
that,
be in a nasty little box.
no,
I love that. I mean, I feel like it's just, I don't know, it's so hard. I mean, I did a whole episode where I just filmed myself swiping on Tinder, and it has been the most popular episode of the show
really,
because, and I thought it would be super boring for people, but it's so challenging not to start becoming incredibly prejudiced, you
and
know,
shallow.
childish, like racist,
Yeah,
sexist against men. You can
it is.
against nationalities, against profession, like incredibly elitist. That's what I most dislike about online dating is I start to become the most superficial, judgmental person I could ever imagine because it's just
Yes.
so hard to sort through it all and know anything about somebody.
Yeah. And, but like also, I think for me also, like I didn't maybe know this consciously, but
Mhm.
also I think the fact that, you know, both me and my husband are foreigners, I mean, it definitely comes with its challenges, but it also comes with with certain benefits with the fact like nobody has family here. So I think with a lot of the like my female friends who are like matched with Spanish men, Spanish families are very close and very tight, and they
Hmm.
take up a lot of time. So if you don't have your family, you will find that, I mean, these girls spend like every other weekend with their partner's family.
Okay, got it. Just sitting around kind of
Yeah,
eating.
or like
Yeah.
they will Sunday lunch is Sunday lunch, and this is something you do, and this is, you know, I feel like if you have both of your families, well, then you can maybe find like a balance. But if your family is abroad and his is not, then his family kind of just takes over. And it does
Yeah.
kind of sometimes create a bit of a power imbalance, that can be tricky to navigate. Um, so yeah, I mean, I gave it a try a couple times. It just never really seemed to work out. And I will say this isn't really a Spanish thing. This is just a white male thing. Um, a lot of, you know, stereotypically white men have very little experience with rejection, with being told no,
Oh my goodness.
things just not going their way. And as someone who has struggled a lot, like there were just so many things that they did not understand, like why I was having such a hard time. And I found that very off-putting. Like, if I can't
It's
talk.
supposed to be a compliment, right? Like, "How come you're not married? You're so pretty. What's wrong with you? What did you
Yeah,
do?" But I don't understand. What did you do? Why?
yeah. Or why you're struggling at work, or why, like,
Oh,
this,
okay.
or the experience of, like, just being a foreigner and, like, having to deal with, like, so much paperwork, and,
Mm.
why are you finding this difficult? It's, yeah, it I found it a bit, there's a certain level of things of, like, having to explain
Mm.
everything to them,
Ugh,
and they
it's
still
just
don't
it's
get it.
exhausting, and what all that demanding, and
Yeah.
that is the nice thing about Croatian guys is I think because this was a communist country, there's a lot of equality, and women are very much in charge and respected here,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Yeah. You know,
Surprising.
my husband is also very much the black sheep of his family,
Mm.
but, um, like, nobody was even remotely surprised when, like, he married a French Mexican woman who's also Jew
Such a
but
good couple.
but he's, and most of his women, like, his a lot of his friends are female, so there was a lot of things that kind of went counter culture to what we would maybe normally expect, like, in a traditional Moroccan man.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. I mean, he's a unique human like you.
He is, and, but also, like, one of the things we bonded over were, like, like, the expat experience in Spain, and he has had a.
Oh, no. There you go, keep going.
He has had actually a much harder time than I have.
Oh my gosh, I can imagine. I mean, as a Moroccan man in anywhere in Europe, it's really
Yeah.
challenging. So,
So, like, he can understand a way, like, it's actually, I mean, our, like, immigration experiences have been different. We've both struggled, but, like, in very different ways.
wow. Oh my gosh, so many good tidbits. I'm glad we hit the record button again. I do, and do you have to rush somewhere? Because I had another question, if
Okay,
it's
no.
okay. Okay, so I guess one of the things I was wondering about is I know for myself, I'm not proud of this at all, but even since my 20s, I care a lot about how someone looks physically, and I think that part of it is I'm an artist, I'm into
Mm,
beauty. It's not even I've dated men who look all different, differently, and, like, some people would not even say that they are attractive, but I know that I don't know, looks just seems to matter to me, and I have friends who really care a lot about height, and even though I say to myself, I should care about character, I want to care about character and not physical looks, it's also there's this feeling, I think it's starting to be less so now, but there's this feeling almost like, "Ugh, I have to push myself," I have to push myself, and I'm almost kind of afraid of letting go of that, and it just feels like there's so much effort around not caring about the physical, even though I know eventually I'm gonna be attracted to how they look, and I'm wondering, besides just forcing yourself, is there some more organic way that you can start centering yourself around character rather than physicality, or what's
I
your
mean, I think that's where, like, taking it slow comes in,
mm. And your
because,
husband's very handsome. I saw the wedding picture. I hope we can include it in the podcast.
uh,
And tall.
yeah, I mean, it's, for me, I think, because I have been with very unattractive men. Well, I'm not gonna say very unattractive, but, like, average,
What were their names?
ish. Like, men I did not find
You
attractive
know
at
who
all.
you are.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, it's one thing if they're not maybe conventionally, I mean, I wouldn't even say, like, attractive, unattractive, because, like, what I would always come back with is, like, okay, and I think this is where at some point I kind of tied myself up in knots, but I see a lot of my single friends doing the same thing, is like, I want a 9 or a 10. But then,
Mhm.
I kind of have to turn around and look in the mirror and say, "Well, am I a 9 or a 10?"
Mm.
And then the other thing I asked myself is, I mean, do I really want this for myself, or do I want, like, the social validation of taking out, like, this super hot guy and everyone saying, "Oh my god, he's so hot."
Wow. Yeah, I know. You know what's so funny? I actually just sometimes when I ask a question, I have an insight.
Mhm.
And so I'm very interested in manifesting and how you can shape your reality through changing your mindset. And it's really I felt like it hasn't worked very well in dating. Like I could with money or finding a home or a best friend, easy, but dating not. And so I realized I had kind of a negative view of myself, and when I was dating this kinda tall guy that my friend thought
Yeah,
was handsome, I started feeling like I was super hot, like, gorgeous. I would look in the mirror
yeah,
and think, "Wow, I'm so gorgeous."
because he chose
And
me, about, like, being chosen
yeah.
by this super hot guy. So
Exactly, and so I thought so then he kinda went away, and I just started feeling unattractive again, and I realized, I said, "If I can manifest a nice apartment or a friend or money, I could probably very easily manifest positive self-image about how I look." And if
yeah,
I actually believe that I'm the hottest woman in the world, not deluding myself, but, like, if I really, really believe that I'm gorgeous, then my problem is solved. So, I just started every day when I went in the mirror so I put this as a manifestation intention
yeah,
to feel that I was beautiful, and then I just started whenever I caught myself being saying, "Oh, your double chin. Oh, that wrinkle. Oh, your belly." I would say, "No. Wow, what a gorgeous belly. What oh, your sweet, soft, plump face. It's so delicious." And and then all it came to a point where I actually did start to see myself that way, and now when I date, I feel like I don't care what they look like because I'm the hot one. There's
yeah,
no problem here.
and also, I think for me, it's more centering about how you feel when you're with them. Like, I wouldn't like, obviously, I
Mhm.
would say you can't date someone, like, you're repelled by. Like, if you just
No.
ugh, if you do not find him in the least bit attractive in any shape, way, or form, well, then that's not gonna work. But, if he's average looking, why not?
Absolutely, if he's fine, and then
Eh, like,
the
maybe
other
he's
thing
not this guy out there, okay, but if you feel good when you're with him,
if you
that's
feel good, yes. And that's
that's where you have to, and
oh,
for
and
me,
it's so hard, right? Like, I have a couple friends in relationships right now, and they feel like crap. They feel
yeah,
so bad, and it's so sad, you know?
yeah, and, for me, in that case, and that's also something else that I think has helped me, reframe the narrative around being single. Like, finding a partner does not necessarily have to be, like, your life's mission, and I
Yes,
think
well,
it's more
what am I
important
gonna do after I find
to
some
be with someone who you feel good with and who you feel seen with than just to be with someone, because I mean, honestly, I would just rather be alone than be with someone, because I've been in relationships that made me feel bad.
Absolutely, and ultimately, if you really go deep in introspection and self-awareness, if you take the steps for therapy and open yourself up to learning, everyone I've met comes back to the same thing, which is there's just a love that's so much greater than one person, and
Yeah, and you have to build
most
your
people
village. I
die,
also
at some point, one of you is gonna be alone at a certain point, and it's just that's kind of where you get to, is just love is something much more infinite and mysterious than
It is, and also I think, like, having a life that you love, regardless of having a partner or not, like, a partner is something that's going to add to your life. It's not the
Yes.
center of your life. So,
Yes, yes, and it can take varying priorities for different people as
mhm,
well, right? Like, oh, so good, Barbara. Oh my gosh. There's just so many delicious tidbits here. What did I Oh yeah, okay. Let me throw something at you. So I have this theory about attraction because I attempted IVF 3
mhm,
times and it didn't work. I have very healthy fertility, whatever, but it's age and all that stuff. And I know so when you're doing these treatments, you get these shots of hormones,
yeah,
and some of them made me feel really depressed, and then other of them made my skin looked so good, and I, felt happy and also just so horny. Like every first, and I would just walk down the street and I would get tons of guys approaching me. And I would also find so many men attractive. And I think this is kind of an underrated dating tip for women that, like, if you aren't attracted to normal guys, just start taking like supplements or maca powder or look at your diet. And actually, like, if you increase your sex drive, I think that that actually improves your dating life. What do you think of my theory?
Yeah. I mean I know because I got pregnant through IVF. So,
You've been there.
yeah.
It's funny, right? I don't know. I feel like it's a good tip.
Yeah, I think, and just in general, like, looking after yourself, like, making
Mhm.
sure, like, I don't think I had a conversation with this about, with one of my friends who's single, and I think part of the problem, it's, I don't wanna label it as a problem because it's just part of who she is. Um, she's very perfectionistic type A kind of personality, and like everything kind of has to fall neatly within like the roadmap or the outline that she's made for it. And human relationships just don't. And um because she's so perfectionistic and type A, she also often uses like self-care as a way to beat herself up. Like her diet has to be perfect. Her like she has to work out a certain like an X amounts of minutes a day. Um and well, that's great, but nobody's perfect. So like a lot of women use self-care to like beat themselves up. That being said,
Mhm.
I do think that, things like cleaning up your diet and certain supplements and just getting enough quality sleep makes such a huge difference, like in terms of sex drive. And also, I'm sure, you don't really, and it's a shame. Women don't really notice these things until we like start trying to conceive. Like learning about your
Mhm.
own cycle and know when you're ovulating and like if you're having short luteal phases or like hormonal imbalances, there are certain things, especially diet wise, that it can help you. So I think that could probably just having like helping your sex drive and having like a healthy reproductive system, like even if you don't want kids, which is something that, it's just
Totally
important for
legit.
your health and
Yeah.
it's important for your relationships.
Did
And if
you
you're going through
meet
perimenopause,
Yeah.
hormonal replacement therapy might also be something you want to look into. Like that kind of thing, I think should also be part like of the broader discussion.
I think so. I mean, I was shocked when I did IVF in my 40s. I just knew nothing about my own body. Like
Yeah.
the whole period worked. I didn't know. I don't think I even knew that you just can only get pregnant one day a month. I just thought you just whatever. I mean, I didn't know that. I'm so embarrassed because I'm an educated person. I had no clue about how the whole thing worked. It's crazy. Do you so actually that's one thing I wanted to ask you before you met your partner or even actually when you were doing IVF, are there any books or podcasts or influence or any kind of resources you might recommend to others to learn more about?
Well, I'm a huge like in terms of relationships or fertility or
Both, both.
both. Well, I think, for example, I'm a huge fan of Esther Perel.
She's great.
Um, I think I like her outlook on relationships a lot. And I also like that she doesn't sugarcoat a lot of things that other people tend to sugarcoat. Um, there is another therapist that I follow online that I find very grounded, which as an elder millennial, she's also an elder millennial. So it's the millennial therapist.
Amazing.
And
Real therapist. Okay.
there's another one, I'll send it to you via WhatsApp because I can't remember her name, who is also very down to earth. She's Indian,
Mhm.
but she is also very no nonsense because I also think that there is an unfortunate tendency of towards like therapy speak and of
Toxic
it can
hug.
be interpreted as navel gazing. And everybody who
Mm,
disagrees with you is a narcissist, and like you come become so obsessed with your boundaries that you shut people out. And there's also like a big tendency of doing that. And she is very much the anti that. And she
mm,
calls it, and she is like very no bullshit, and she will, calls it like she sees it. And I think that's great. So,
yeah.
yes, there's that. And in terms of fertility and just like fertility awareness, I really like there's the As a Woman podcast, a
Mm,
fertility doctor based in Texas
okay.
who is very empathetic, but she also just kind of shares the facts. And I mean, the facts aren't always pleasant to listen to, but I think they're important because there's, oh, again, like a lot of fertility influencers. And I've been seeing a lot of this discussion online lately, which you can be a mother at whatever stage in the life you want, which technically is true because families look different than they did. And there's lots of ways to be a mom. And, surrogacy, adoption, donor eggs, embryo adoption, like there are a lot of options. But a lot of women understand that to mean like you can have like your own genetic child whenever you choose to. And that's just not true. And
It's not true. It changes and it's different for everybody.
it's
And
different for everybody.
well, Barbara, you are the best. Thank you again for coming on.
You are most welcome. And whenever you
Mhm.
want, here.
And Barbara, if people want to follow you and kind of stay in the loop for when you start your own practice in a few years, what's the best way for them to find you?
Well, I mean, I will give you my Instagram handle. It's my personal Instagram because I don't have a professional Instagram yet. But it's my last name, it's Acuna 28003. And you can find me there. Like there isn't like a ton of professional resources there, but like you can DM me and I will answer.
Amazing. Okay, well, thank you so much again for joining us today. It's been a real treat. I'm so happy to know you. And yeah, I guess that's a wrap. And I'm really looking forward to the start of this new friendship together.
Same.